Hello and welcome to the Awana Tennessee Network. I'm Hunter Williams. I serve as the Awana Missionary for Central and Southeast Tennessee. And today we've got Brian Bixel joining us. Brian is the Awana Missionary for Northeast Georgia. He's been serving in that role since 2012 and has many years of experience serving in Awana. And Brian has such a heart for ministry. You're going to see that come out today as we have our conversation. And we're going to be talking about discipline, the fun topic of discipline, but specifically looking at why kids might act out or misbehave and how that can inform us to better serve and discipline them. It's a great conversation. You're going to want to stick around to the end to hear this story that Brian shares. Don't want to get too much away, so let's go ahead and get started with our conversation with Brian Bixel. All right, we've got Brian with us. Brian, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
I've known Brian. Actually, Brian was one of the first missionaries I met. We met all the way back when I started as a missionary appointee. We were at support raising boot camp together, and that's where I first met Brian. And then we've just connected here and there. We actually worked together on one of the online trainings, the Awana Online Basics training, and it was there where I heard Brian do a teaching on discipline that I thought was very helpful. But before we talk about our topic today, I know you, but there's people listening or watching that may not know you from my neck of the woods. So having a Southeast rep here, someone from Georgia, not far from us. So I wanted people to get to know Brian a little bit, and I would love for you to share really just some of your favorite Awana memories. You've served in Awana for many years, been a missionary. So I'd love for you to share just one or two memories of just things that stuck out to you, joyful memories, memories of seeing God work. I would love for you to share that with people.
Well, most of my favorite memories, of course, are kids coming to know Christ. Mm-hmm. Just the look on their face when they finally get it. When the Spirit moves in and they figure it out that they need their Savior. That's by far my favorite thing. But I would say another memory would be I have seen the Grand Prix. That's where we race our little wooden cars down the track. Mm-hmm. I have literally seen that unite a family, believe it or not, that simplistic little car race. I've also gotten to see a leader, by listening to children recite their verses, figure out that he himself was not saved.
Wow.
So there's nothing like going through I was the AMD at the time. I'm checking my little groups, and there's nothing like, there's a full grown man over here just bawling his eyes out. He figured it out.
Wow.
So I've seen some amazing things through the ministry of Awana.
That's what it's all about, right? And I love those stories because that's similar to my story, where it wasn't just my life as the child that was impacted, but my entire family's life was impacted by Awana. And so hearing that, whether it's leaders, whether it's families, that's what it's all about, making disciples of children and families. So beautiful. Love hearing that. That's awesome. And Brian, you can just tell from you sharing your heart behind serving churches and children. And one thing that's necessary about serving churches is discipline. Kids, they're still developing, they're still growing. So you're going to have some kids act out, misbehave, act up. And so we need discipline, right? Without it, things can get out of control. Things can be chaotic or distracting for other kids. Mm-hmm. And Awana has a lot of training and gives methods on discipline. And actually what I'll do, I'll put links in the show notes on the online modules and handouts Awana has on that. Okay. But the reason I wanted to bring you on was when we were working together on that Awana Basics online training, you did a segment on discipline I thought was so helpful. And it was this idea of learning the underlying reasons of why kids might be acting out. And I think that's crucial because learning why they act out can help us know how to best correct and discipline them. And so With that said, I was wondering if you could share some underlying reasons the why kids might be acting out or misbehaving, and how that can inform and change the way we discipline those children.
You know, the discipline thing isn't not, you need a timeout. It's not an immediate, we need to talk to your parents. It's certainly not, I don't want you back here. There are reasons that kids do what they do. And so, yeah, the class that I taught is one of our modules you'll probably send out there.
Yeah.
But I just like to bring it to light. And so let's just talk, at first, one of the reasons that kids might be acting out is, hey, maybe they're hungry. Maybe they just need something to eat. If they're coming from school, they probably haven't had anything since, possibly 10:30, 11 o'clock, whenever their lunch is. And now it's 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. They might be hungry. So something that we can do for that would be, maybe we just give them a healthy snack.
Yeah.
Not candy, not always pizza, but just something to put a little something in their stomach. Another reason they could be acting out could be they're home alone. They're neglected. A lot of latchkey kids are out there. They get put on the bus. When they get home, there's nobody there. And then magically about 6 o'clock, somebody comes blasting through the door, picks them up, scoops them up, takes them to club, drops them off, and leaves again. That's rough on a child. So that could be another reason that they are acting out. And so with that, we just need some rules, and we need to be consistent in enforcing those.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, how about we're not paying enough attention to them? Like our cell phones,
Yeah.
Well, they have that at home too. Parents neglect them a lot of times because they're just too busy. They're on their phones, hey, wait, I got to post this. This is our world now. And this is serious business. And so, we need to just focus on the kids. That should be our priority. Our phones, when we're in club, Sunday school, wherever we're engaging children, that phone should be put away. It's just not needed. A lot of our kids also come from broken homes, dysfunctional families. Things aren't what we think they are.
Yeah.
Even our church kids, newsflash.
Yeah.
Like I tell people these days, some people come to church with 2 masks on. You got your COVID mask on over the church mask that we put on every Sunday to come in. And then things at home, if our kids were to open up, they're just not good. And so, our help for that, of course, is just, we always need to show kindness. We need to be friendly. And most of all, we need to listen. They have something to say, and they're important. Another one is, sometimes some of them get yelled at all day. The guardians yell at them, other kids, they're just yelling at each other. So we just need to be gentle with them. The other is accomplishments. I use a ruler for this, and I just tell people, a lot of kids, they just feel they don't measure up. I have forgiven him for this, but this was my life when I was a kid. My dad, you just couldn't measure up. You could never do anything that pleased him. Even if you tried, there was something negative coming back. And, now years have gone by, and but that's rough as a kid. And so I know personally that this can happen. So we need to work one-on-one with these kids. That's why small group time is so vital. It's more than just, hey, Billy, what's your verse? Good job, my man. Here's your jewel. Go on. One-on-one time, building that bond, the most crucial time of your night. And let's see, where else can we go with it? Maybe, you know what? Hey, maybe they're just tired. Some of these kids, the bus picks up some of the kids in my neighborhood at 6:30. So they're getting up at 5:45, whatever. They get on that bus, they do their school stuff all day, running around. Once again, they come home, they're all by themselves. We scoop them up, bring them to club, and now they're in their 13th, 14th hour of the day. Wouldn't you be tired?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't think about that, but they're probably just tired. Some of them, they might just need space. They might just, and I don't mean time out, I mean just back off. If we're playing our music and we're having fun and Susie's just standing there, don't drag her into it. Give her some room. Ask her if she'd like to join, but it might just be, oh,
Yeah.
I need a couple minutes.
Yeah.
You know, we do that, right? We do that as adults. Just, would you just give me a second? And we might excuse ourselves and then come back. We need to allow them the same thing. Another one that I look for with kids is security. You know, a lot of them don't have that security. They just feel insecure. We need to give them special attention. We need to let them know that we really do care. And I would venture forth to say, if we really don't care, perhaps this is not the ministry that we should be in. We are there for these kids. So those are just things that I look for with kids. You know, just there are reasons they do what they do.
I think that's so helpful because we see a kid act out immediately, we can jump to a certain rule of discipline. But a lot of what you're saying is we have to take time to listen to that child, maybe getting on their level and saying, why are you acting the way you are? And, you know, they may not always want to jump to tell us, but over time we get to learn some quirks and some rhythms and habits behind our kids. And that's why it goes back to you saying we've got to know them. We got to know their stories, their backgrounds, what they're coming from. And that can help us. You know, we learn that that child hasn't eaten since lunch. Hey, and if you find out that's a reoccurring theme for a lot of your kids, maybe part of your Awana ministry could be to feed the kids before you start. I've seen churches where that helped their discipline issue significantly because they realize, man, our kids are just acting out because they're starving, right?
They can help with the adults too.
Yeah, adults too, right? They're coming straight from work, and that can maybe help some adults not be so snippy sometimes. And so, yeah, and I think it's helpful too to realize they're human just like I'm human. What leads me to want to act out and not be my best self, right? And so, think about that with kids. And I just think this conversation is so helpful because, like I said, I think we can be quick to jump to a certain method of discipline, but instead of jumping to that method, first let's say, hey, let's listen. Let's learn. And you know, that's a longer form of discipline that takes a lot more steps, but it's worth it. Because our goal at the end of the day isn't just to have kids who are all perfectly behaved. The goal at the end of the day is to make disciples. And that takes heart transformation. That takes learning about the kids. And so, Brian, what you're sharing here, I think is so helpful for leaders who work with children or students, for anyone, really. And one thing I would love for you to share before we close out our conversation is I know you have some pretty powerful stories of how God has worked through what we're talking about. You've seen this practically, where when you took the time to learn about kids, you saw how God influenced you and it informed the way that you discipline them. I would love for you to share those stories because I know when I heard them, it really touched me. So I'd love for you to share that with everyone.
All right, well, hang on to your bootstraps. So I'll start with a young man named Ryan. So Ryan was one of those that I noticed would go from one leader to the next, and the leaders would be getting upset. You know, you can tell when they start talking with through their teeth.
Yeah,
I want you to sound. You know what I'm talking about? Maybe a little blood vein coming up here. And it's like, all right, would you just send Ryan over here? I'll take him. So one thing I noticed about Ryan was Ryan's autistic. And a thing that kind of showed me that was he had an interest in door closers. So Ryan would open the door, you know, the thing at the top of the door.
yeah.
Okay, so the door closes. He'd open it, it closed, open, close, open, close. And, and the leader's like, I want you to sit, Ryan, you need to sit down. Ryan, you need to sit down and be still. Okay, let's try this. I know that Ryan is a little different, okay, in the way he processes things. So let's try this. Okay, Ryan, he's sitting there, and I said, Ryan, did you do your studies this week? Yes, sir. Okay, can you tell me what you'd learned? Yes, sir. And he'd be real quiet, but his foot would start tapping. I thought, okay, what's going on? And then the next thing you know, he's saying his verses to a song. Yeah. That is how he learned his verses. I don't care if you sing me your verses. I don't care if you rap your verses. I don't care if you write them on paper and hand them to me. Did you learn? Did you retain what it is that we're after this week? And he could do, you had to slow him down. He could do 3-4 sections a night. The kid he just would absorb information. Good job, Brian. That's just so wonderful. I'm proud of you. Now I need you to do me a favor. I want you to go and see, I want you to play with the door for a little while I talk to these kids. Poof. A whole different child there. He's doing what we would like in Awana. I can see him right where he's at. He's not hurting a thing. The other kids know Ryan. They're not bothered in the least. This gives me the freedom of time more to spend with these kids. So that was just one example, was learning Ryan's differences and how I could work with that. I would say probably my other would be Chad. Same thing with Chad. Wow. Chad had some stuff going on. Striving for attention. Everything from pushing kids to one time he just ran full tilt boogie into a wall. Just blam. Who does that? This is attention. He's striving for attention, throwing his books across the room, and this did take time to work with Chad, to find out things about him, to find out things about his family life, like we mentioned before, what's going on at home. So I know that at home, Chad, there's no dad in the picture. Strike one. Mom lived on the couch. She's a drug addict. Strike two. Both of them, because they can't afford a home because of the situation, live with grandma who has alcohol issues. That's strike three. I'll even add one more. In today's answers to everything with children who act out like this, what do? Oh, that child's just acting out. Well, he's got this, and we give all these labels to him, the whole alphabet, ADD, ADD. We just add everything to them. And our cure is, of course, medication, right? We're going to dope them up. Guess what wears out when they're at club? Because we give it to them in the morning, so they're calm during school, and it wears out at night. That's strike four. This kid doesn't stand a chance. The world is against him. But now I know what's going on. So I know that Chad needs somebody to come beside him, to show him that they care. And this goes beyond Wednesday night. We did things on Saturdays. We purposefully did things with our clubbers during the week to let them know we love them on all the other days too. But it did take a while with Chad. But one thing I do remember was every Christmas we had a Christmas party, and I would buy all of my kids, because I had the same ones every week. I had a Sparky group and a TNT group. And so I would buy them all a gift. Now, it's a candy bar that year, $1. Come on, it's not like I went down to JCPenney and picked out a wardrobe or something. They just, something simple. Yeah. So our party's going on. The kids are running rampant throughout the place, full of all their goodies. And he comes up. I'll never forget. He's standing right there. And he looks at me and he says, "You bought this for me?" I mean, I felt like that. You bought this for me? That simple little thing of showing how much I think started to work. Because going forward, he was a different child. He started to tell me things. He started to, just open up. We got along fine after that. The next year, I became a missionary, so I wasn't in club anymore. But the next year, Chad met Jesus. This is what happens when we apply discipline in the right way, looking for what can be causing these things that go on.
And I love that last story, because it shows that discipline has to have a long view. Mm-hmm. What's the end goal? That's why I said our end goal in discipline isn't just behavior modification. It's heart transformation. Yep. And see, with your story, that took a lot of time of being there with Chad, learning his story, showing him you cared through spending time with him, gifts. Mm-hmm. And over time, that resonated with Chad, and that started to work with Chad. And then the way you discipline actually modeled Jesus to Chad. So at that following year, he came to know Christ. And so having that bigger picture of how discipline plays into our discipleship, right? Mm-hmm. That's the key. If we can keep that in mind, discipline plays into our discipleship. Use it as a tool of discipleship, not as a tool for dominance or a tool just to feel like you're in complete control. But no, say, I'm disciplining because I want to make sure they don't miss the gospel, or that the other kids don't miss the gospel. But also disciplining in a way to learn about the child and do what's best for them. So Brian, man, thank you so much. I think this is definitely going to be helpful for people. I love it every time I hear it or we talk about it. So Brian, thank you so much for coming on. I know for sure we'll have to get together at some point and do another one of these, but
I love Chattanooga, man.
Yeah, Chattanooga. Hey, maybe after this COVID stuff, we could do one in person together. So
there you go.
But all right, Brian. Well, you take care, brother. Thank you so much again for coming on.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to our conversation today. If you have any questions or comments about something that Brian shared or that I shared, you can send those to hunterw@awana.org. If you'd like to learn more about what we're doing here in Central and Southeast Tennessee, you can head over to our website at www.awanatn.com. And if you'd like to support our ministry to have more content like this coming out, you can do one of two things. One, you could subscribe to our podcast or YouTube channels, and you can become a monthly ministry partner and support us financially. Also, don't forget to check out the links I put in the show notes for more content on discipline. Well, I think that's pretty much everything I've got for you. I want you to have a great day. Hopefully this content was encouraging and equipped you, and I'll see you next time.